this morning. If the tomb is empty and we're believers, we simply take that by faith. And it is what continues to allow us to go on, even though the world lives in fear, even though the economy is bad, even though there are other people searching for all sorts of things out here in our world. The only thing that we have and the only thing that we can prove is that Jesus Christ is alive, and I take that by faith. In the book of Ephesians this morning, in the 2nd chapter of the book of Ephesians, I don't hear too many Bibles turn. Ephesians chapter 2, starting in the 8th verse, it says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God. It's not a result of works, so that no one may boast. We are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, and we have been created for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should," this says, "walk in them, that we should live in them, that we should be doing them, in order that others may be able to see Christ within us." It's a gift of God, and it's available to all of us. And when we begin to live that gift of God out, then other people begin to be able to see Christ in us. We're the only Christ that they are ever going to see. We are the only Christ that they are ever going to be able to hear. We are the only Christ that's ever going to come and be able to help them, to feed those who are hungry, to clothe those who are naked, to give comfort to those who are afflicted. We are the only Christ this morning that this world is going to see. And if the empty tomb has made a difference in your life, has anybody seen Christ in you this week? It should be easy. This is Easter week. This was the week that we was looking forward to. This was the week that made all of the difference in our life. This was the week that turned everything around. This was the week that changed us forever and ever. But even faith becomes old. And even faith becomes stale. And it becomes difficult to come to church on Sunday night, because the basketball game is on. And it becomes difficult to come to church on Wednesday night, because I'm busy, or I'm tired, or I can read the Bible at home. In faith, which is a gift of God, and which is to be lived out, is what it said there in the book of Ephesians, begins to become stale. And those who live in the world, a world of disbelief, who are looking for something to believe in, can't even find in the church, where 80% of Americans say that they believe in God, and less than 20% show up on Sunday morning, can't even find in the church something that has made a difference in our life. They're looking for proof. Thomas was looking for proof, and he said, you know what? If only I could do this. And Jesus showed up, and Thomas was able to do it. And I tell you this morning, church, that all over America today, somebody's saying, if only Jesus would show up and help me, or show me, or just give me some sort of proof. And then God allows you to walk along and come into their life some way and somehow. And you become the proof that they need. Christ is alive. Because the empty tomb has made a difference in our life. In the book of Mark this morning, in the 9th chapter, I think this is where most of us live. In the book of Mark, chapter 9, starting in the 20th verse. They brought the boy to him, And when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground. He rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And it has often cast him into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But here it is. If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for one who believes." And then in verse 24, immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe. Help my unbelief." You see, it's difficult to live in a world of disbelief when you're a person of faith. But sometimes doubt comes into even a person of faith's life, and we begin to say, "I believe." But then we cry out to God, and we say, "Lord, help my unbelief." We know that Christ is risen. We know that the tomb is empty, and we know that it's made a difference in our life, but we get caught up in doing all of this other stuff, and we get so busy, and we get so tired, and we get pushed here and pushed there, and we just find ourselves, we haven't disbelieved in Christ. We just find ourselves at a place where our faith is not where we want it to be, and it's not what it should be. We just simply say, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." That's where we live most of the time. But the good news is that Jesus Christ in those moments helps our unbelief. So this morning, church, if you're looking for proof that Christ is alive, the only thing you're going to get is a believer in Jesus. And church, if you're a believer in Jesus this morning, know that somebody's looking at your life to see if there's any proof that Christ is alive. And I just wonder this morning if the empty tomb has made a difference. Because if it has, and when we get to that point of belief in our life, then we're called to live that out in order that the disbelieving world will be able to see Christ in us. The empty tomb, it made a difference in these people's life in the first century. Most of those folks, after they had received what it was that they needed to go on and live, they made a difference in the world in which they were living. And we continue to live in that difference today. Christ is calling you to be a difference maker today, though, in the world in which we live. It's by the power of the resurrection, the empty tomb, that we can do that. We're going to sing a final song, but if there's something in your life this morning that you're like the guy in the book of Mark, and you say, "Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief." If you find yourself at that place, I would remind you that this is an altar of prayer, and that this is a place that we can find that help in which we need. 486.